Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls because I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like him. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.
Hey, I'm KC.
And I'm Tyler.
And I'm Eric.
And you're listening to
The Element Podcast.
Podcast. What is happening, all you woods people out there? Guess what? It's time to be in the woods. Woo! Man, I'm so excited. It's this time of year. I'm fixing to leave on a hunt. And actually, I'm glad that I have a couple guys here with me who know how to hunt, so they can like kind of just tell me about some hunting because they already been doing some hunting. Tyler Jones and Eric Gentry have returned from the great mountains of the West.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel, boys?
Tired.
Yep, real tired.
Yeah. Man, y'all are old.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
No, Tyler, you told me a stat a while ago I thought was pretty. I like stats. You had
Yeah.
a stat a while ago for your monthly bedtime ratio or bed ratio.
Yeah. I believe I try not to be the guy that's like, oh, I walked 13 miles today and I'm going to walk 17 tomorrow, so that way I can tell everybody the end of my trip mileage. But I think I have, in the last 21 days, slept in a tent 16 of them.
No thanks. I ain't into that.
Luckily, we did have some cots for a couple of those nights.
Yeah,
So
I think,
but still, it's like you're sleeping in a daggum hammock just about.
we might
point.
have us some cots for the Arizona trip too.
Yeah.
At least a couple. Cots take up a lot of room, but
Yeah.
you can store stuff
That's
underneath
right.
them.
That is one.
It's
benefit.
a big redeeming factor on them. A couple of them I have are squeaky, which is less than ideal. Like if you move it all,
Yeah. Everybody's awake. Actually, we're going to have a premiere of this video on YouTube soon.
like a premiere, like it's going to go live and we're all going to watch together.
All going to watch it.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I think what it's going to be is Sunday. What's the date for Sunday? It's going to be at 2 p.m.
Sunday would be the 17th. No, the 18th.
18th of September at 2 p.m. Central CDT, whatever that stands for. It's a CST coming up in a,
That's what I
couple
need
months,
is a
right?
CST for sure.
Yeah, CST. Casey's a little tired. He's had a elk hunt, a meat cleaning session, and a baby all in the last 3 weeks. So
That's it, man. But hey, ain't no time for tiredness.
No.
Season's on, man. You killed a giant mule deer. I killed a average cow elk, and
Hunter killed an average Tennessee velvet
That's right,
buck.
man. That's right. So
Yeah.
we got it all on film. Y'all seen the Hunter video. The mule deer video is going to be out soon. So
Yeah.
come join us for that.
That's right. So if you want to, you can go right now and see that it says premiere on the video and get your reminder, and you can click set reminder and it will tell you whenever the premiere is happening. We can all hop on there and chat and stuff like that. So that is happening, like KC said, September 18th at 2 p.m. Central DT.
So, yeah, I'm glad you try to not be the guy who does the 13 miles, whatever. Some of our friends who also make hunting videos that we've been talking to here lately released a video and we're talking about how they were 15 miles back. And I was talking to Greg about it, and he said, well, technically it's like 8 miles, but they walked like 15 to get there. It's like, okay, is everybody doing this thing where we look at like how many miles we actually walked?
How many you have to walk total that day?
Yeah, exactly. Because that's not really how crows fly, man. They don't fly that way. So crows actually fly in a straight line.
Yeah.
There's very few places in the lower 48, I believe, that you can get more than like 10 to 12 miles away from pavement. Because a lot of times you're going in before you go out. And y'all pretty much went in as far as you could get in before going out.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
You we've been talking about this for a while, but tell people what you just got back.
So this is a weird thing, but you can spend money in some people's eyes. It's not a whole lot. I mean, depending on what you make, to buy tags like this. But I actually drew a tag that I guess I had 10 points. So this is my 11th year of applying when I drew it. So I drew a 10-point tag this year for Mule Deer, which is something. It's the first time I've really got to cash in like a bunch of points for a tag. So very special hunt in a very wild area. And I actually looked up how fast horses can walk yesterday. It said the average horse walks 4 miles an hour. So
about double a human.
Yeah, I think unless you're walking with Mark Kenyon.
Yeah.
Because we walked 10 miles in 3.5 hours with Mark. So.
Well, you can get after it, if you want to.
Yeah.
But I think like an average human just walking pace is like 1.8 or something.
I had this guy in college who played DT in my class, and it was Kyle DeGroat. He guarantee you less than a quarter mile an hour. Dude, this dude was the slowest walker. He was just a big old DT, you know?
Yeah.
And like, he wasn't like fat. He was just big, you know? And he would put on some like slides and socks and just walk to class. He would take off an hour before class just so he could walk slow to class and enjoy his time. I mean, it was the slowest walk.
Was he duck-footed?
He's a good dude. I didn't notice it.
There's a correlation with slow walks and being duck-footed.
I'm kind of duck-foot, and I walk pretty fast, though.
I feel like when you go to – maybe when you're relaxed, but I feel like when you go to walk and your feet are perfectly in line, straight.
Thanks.
Because some things are straight, man, and your feet are one of them. You know, it's probably because you focus so hard on having good walking form. You know,
Yeah.
It's pretty important.
Well,
Greg over here, who's not on the mic right now, Greg is a fast-paced walker too.
yeah, I feel like
I don't know if it's always that way, but if Greg needs to go to his truck to get something to come back, he's going to do it in half the time that a normal person would do it.
Man on a mission.
Dude, he like puts his shoulders into the walk and everything.
Dude, we got some fast walkers on our team.
He used to work for Jimmy John's, and I think that's where it comes from.
Freaky fast.
Yeah.
Freaky fast walk.
Yeah, so
Hunter's freaky fast walk.
They started out with speed horses could walk for some reason.
Yeah, because I was trying to figure out how far this is. Like I said, I'm not the guy with the watch, which I actually like having Eric with the watch around because there's some cool stats that I could hear while we're in the mountains and
the
learn.
altimeter is pretty nice up there.
Yeah,
it's a little off though.
His is a little bit off. It seemed to be about
200, 300. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Off,
How much? Wow.
Low. Mm-hmm. So anyway, but I was thinking, I was like, man, I wonder how far we actually were back in, because everybody wants to talk about that stuff or whatever. Yeah, I guess. But yeah, so if horses, I would say if horses walk it took us on the downhill to get out, took us like almost 3.5 hours to get out. So I would assume the horses are probably not walking 4 even on the downhill because it's in, rougher country. But if they're walking 3, which is 75% of a normal horse average walk, then that's pretty close to 10 miles in. And then we walked up in there anywhere from that camp, probably, 2.5, 3 miles at the most, probably from that camp. So, and not necessarily straight back from the road or whatever, but in there. So we were deep. We were I mean, way out. We're in wilderness. There's no four-wheeling or anything like that. No dirt bikes, nothing motorized. It's all horseback or pedal power, bipedal walking. So, pretty far back.
It's cool.
So we got if you're not following, we had a drop camp. So an outfitter takes you in by horseback and puts you in a base camp of a like canvas wall tent. Little canvas wall tent, had 2 cots in it and a little cook stove, and then from there we hunted out from there and also spiked out. So that was kind of the deal. He drops you off and leaves.
Do you mean
not
the
like a guided
infamous
deal?
2016 Element elk hunt video spiked out? Or
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, no, we watched that. I asked Eric if he had ever seen it, and we stayed in a little cabin one night before we got up there. We're trying to kind of acclimate and take our time, and we watched it. He hadn't seen it, so we watched that video. It's a pretty cool
That's
video.
Cool. Yeah, man.
It's fun.
It was fun. Eric, this is your first time. Well, so you went to Idaho with Tyler.
Yeah.
But this is probably a lot different than that.
A little bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah. I guess that's kind of more of an into podcast question, but I want to kind of walk through your journey because it's a lot different than Tyler's because he's been in country like this somewhat before. What was your first impression driving as far as you have to get just to get to that area, like just looking at the country and seeing it and thinking about how vast it is?
It started kind of in New Mexico, where you started to see mountains there, some pretty big ones, and then like as we kept getting closer and closer, the more I saw, and I was like, whoa. It was a lot different than
I always
Idaho.
love the first mountain you see in New Mexico. I don't remember what it's
What is it called?
Capulan?
Capulan.
Yeah.
No, that's the volcano.
Yeah.
But it's before that where that roadside stop is.
Starts with a B, doesn't it?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
We stopped there to pee the other day.
You always stop there.
Yeah.
It's the middle of nowhere, and it's like a good time to use the bathroom. That's where the infamous 6:30 line came from. Speaking
that
of
it?
spiked out. Yeah, we were asleep there.
I had no clue where we were at, but yeah.
Yeah, we slept there for a few hours.
We said that line at least a half dozen times on this trip, dude. Eric would be
love
like,
it.
well, it's like 6:30 right now. And I'd be like, yeah, we can still leave at 6:30.
So, like, once you see that, it's like, oh, there's mountains here.
Yeah, we up here.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah, he is.
What was the most standout thing that you saw in that, like, in just the drive in there? Don't give names, of course.
Yeah. I think the most standout cool thing was when we got up to like 11, like my chest started to get tight a little. I was like, ooh, I'm feeling it here. And we stopped to check his bow and everything. And like, I looked down the mountain and there was a giant moose. And I think that was the first thing that stood out.
Yeah,
it's just
that's
like, whoa, is that a cow or is that a moose?
Yeah.
Y'all had some story stuff of that, I think, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we did.
yeah.
That was cool. Yeah, we stopped down once we got to like National Forest, pretty close to where we were going to stay that night. I stopped to shoot the bow on a downhill, just up high to make sure that everything was still good, and it was shooting good, man. My bow was shooting good. It's been shooting really good.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I was sitting there messing. Eric decided he didn't really want to go downhill 40 yards and back up, so he got to see the moose before I did.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense. So what I kind of want to do a little bit here, because we need to get into the story of the hunt, but I want you to somewhat compare and contrast the general concept of difficulty versus expense with like getting outfitted drop camp type thing, because you and I in 2019 did the exact opposite of this, where we decided to just be mules and shapeshift and then turn into hunters once we got back in the backcountry. And this probably because we learned so much doing the Gila hunt in 19 probably led you partially to your decision to try to do an outfitted thing.
Yeah, we talked about it.
So, like, first off, is it a thing that the average guy needs to consider, especially whenever you have a lot invested in a hunt?
Yeah, I mean, I think 100%.
Yeah.
The average guy makes more money than you and me, too.
That's true.
So it's not, and this is like, if you were to break down the cost on a 11-year basis, it ain't saving that much money a year to get to this point. You know what I mean? So it's definitely, in my opinion, worth it. I don't know. I am a buy the experience over buy the new truck kind of guy. So that's just like, I would rather buy a good experience and have more fun than have more suck, I guess you could say, for kind of a crude word, but like more of the fun than that. So that, and then I would rather come home and have a recliner that's 12 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of the way that I look at it. A lot of guys like creature comforts, which are good, because I definitely missed those the last 3 weeks that I've been out a lot. It's kind of weird to sit down on my couch like last night when I got here. But I think that like if you got to, you want to weigh it all out. There's also there's so many variables here. If you were an economist drawing a map or a graph rather, you'd have to add a lot of variables. And one of those is, what kind of shape are you in? And
hair.
And then, if you're in pear shape, then you might, even on a 3 mile back deal, you might want to have a guy drop you 3 miles back instead of having to work from the truck every day 3 miles. If you're shaped more like Greg here, then you might be cool with that, just not getting dropped, and doing your own thing.
Mr. Work Boots 15 miles back.
Yeah, exactly. Fast walk,
Yeah.
6 miles an hour, he's going to be there in a half hour.
So one of the things that I enjoyed at the Gila hunt is we got to make our own decisions and choose where we were going to stay and when we were going to pull out, and where, we had the option to just move camp and all that. Did you feel like you missed having that, or did you feel all right? Like it was nice just to have a base camp and just hunt out of there?
No, I didn't. I did not miss that. One thing Eric and I talked a lot about was how big the country was, and even in one drainage, what you had to look at and could see versus what you had to do to get to the next drainage to look at and see. It was just massive, man. It was almost overload just in one drainage. Even just to be man, we didn't see anything move this morning, deer-wise. But I can tell that, I can see all those willows over there, but they're also 6 foot tall, and all that deer had to do was be in his bed before we got here or in that area, and I might not have seen him if he walked 15 yards in that stuff and then bedded. So, I mean, even still, there's places and little hills and stuff that you couldn't see past. And so I think overall, having that camp, it's the same as having your truck, except for it's 10 miles in there already. And so if you want to work out of that 3 miles, I mean, then you can do it. And, there's another guy in there that we had met and talked to for a little bit, and he was kind of the same way. He was when he came in and camped, we saw him, and he camped below us, a long ways below us, but straight line distance to him, it wasn't very far. He worked I don't know, he worked several miles into the next stuff. A couple days later, he texted me on the inReach, and so I mean I think that's the advantage, is getting dropped off in there now, instead of hunting everything within 4 miles of the truck that you can, and then potentially moving somewhere else. You're hunting a place that there's a lot less people and still hunting everything in between, within 4 miles of your quote unquote truck or camp. So, and that's what we did. We spiked out. We tried to spike out twice. We spiked out once. The issue with hunting where we were at was we're super high up in the country, and we basically, water doesn't exist very much above 12,000 feet. And I did not stalk a deer on this trip, I don't think, that was under 12,000 foot. So just super high.
Yeah, you're above tree line the whole time while you're hunting deer.
Pretty much. If we're not, if we're glassing and hunting, now we walk through trees and stuff. Our base camp, so I'm going to call it base camp, is our canvas wall tent, but our base camp was in trees, but at the very top pretty much. I mean, we had to walk a couple hundred yards to get out of trees probably. So, but yeah, I didn't realize we were gone 9 days total from the house.
Y'all gone a long time.
Yeah. I was
didn't realize that either.
I was sitting there thinking, like, I shot my deer on, which I was, spoiler alert, I shot a deer on the fourth day of hunting season.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about it more in terms of that, but by the time we got out of there and everything, I mean, just a long ways in, dude.
We ran this to South Dakota last year too, which different scenario, but like, if you have like a travel day and a scouting day and then seasons, like that's a lot on the front end of a trip. Or Nebraska was that way too. You know, you give yourself these scouting days and all of a sudden like 4 days of hunting, well, you're gone from home 7 days already or whatever. You're like, crapper.
Yeah,
you know?
I know.
Yeah.
And so we did talk about the Gila trip a bunch, man. Looking back, and even there, I was scared if we'd have shot a bull. Like I was, and looking back,
it wouldn't have been good.
No, it would have spoiled.
Yeah.
Like there would have been, I told Eric, I was like, dude, the last stretch coming out of the canyon, like it's all uphill, just kind of like a slide uphill the whole way. I was like, I got like a mile and a half out. Never before outside of like the game of football have I been like, and that's just training stuff. But like, have I been in a position where I was like, I don't know if I can finish this. Like I was like a mile and a half out thinking, like wanting to cry just about. Like I was like, this is
I remember
miserable, dude.
We went through that like fence gap and those quail were on the ground that one time. And it like kind of re-energized me because I got to think about like, man, I could shoot one of those quail right now. And we kind of messed around with it for a second and I felt better. But like about that point in time, I was like, because it was like the least steep thing that we encountered. Yeah. But it was gradual for a mile and a half.
Yeah.
And golly, I've been doing some stuff on the treadmill lately, kind of getting ready for my hunt. And like, dude, just a 15% on the treadmill is like, that'll kill you. And that's not like that steep, but just over a course of a couple miles, like it'll wear you down.
No, dude. And so on that hunt, I actually messed my knee up.
The Gila hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it kind of came into play on this hunt a little bit.
Really?
Yeah. But I will say this. I've trained really hard this summer. I was telling KC this, I think, before we left, but like I've never really run 3 miles at all. I'm a short distance guy. And dude, I was running a mile to 3 miles pretty daggum fast before I left. And like the stuff that I have run 1 and 2 miles, I was running faster than I've ever run for sure. And so really good shape. Before I leave, I'm like 200 on the dot, which is what I weighed when I was 18. And so just like in really good shape. My lungs are in good shape. And I was very glad because this hunt would have, I can almost guarantee you, been tougher than the Gila for sure. I just put them in the same ballpark. I can't really tell you which one's tougher, but I think it would have been tougher than the Gila.
We got a lot more elevation on this hunt for sure. Like that's like the big kicker.
Like what, 4,000 feet,
Yes.
5,000 feet. Yeah. So add another mountain on top of the Gila pretty much. But I would have definitely been, if I was in this good a shape when I went to the Gila, it would have been easier probably than this hunt. But I did have a heavier pack most of the time in the Gila. So we ran smaller packs on this hunt, 4800s, and we also didn't carry as much equipment, camera equipment, and just better gear overall, like lighter stuff, right? And then also because we were able to get packed in, like we could carry a lot of stuff on the horses and then just day hunt out of like, and so the thing that we did miss was a 8-mile hike.
Yeah. You had fresh legs
with
once
70-pound packs
set
on.
up.
Yeah.
Huge.
So, but we ended up, to kind of just jump around in the story here. We tried like day 2 I think of the season. We tried to spike out. So we packed out of camp. We packed like food for 3 days, tents, sleeping bag and pad, and all like a couple of extra things that you don't normally have in a day pack that are pretty heavy. And we went like a ways and hunted all day out of like 65 to 70 pound packs, and got to the end of the day and we're like, dude, I don't know how we're gonna get water. Like we can't get
The
water.
place we were gonna keep going, and Onyx showed a pond there, but like we couldn't really glass it to see if there was water.
When I glassed of the pond, I couldn't see water in it, and I was like, and it was uphill from where we were at, and I'm like, man, I don't feel like going over there here at the end of the day and finding out that there's no water in that thing and having to walk literally, 4 miles back to camp with the 70-pound pack after hunting out of it all day.
If there'd been any snowpack, then you'd have been a little bit better off because there'd been trickles everywhere. But I saw the pictures. There's like no snow at all, which I was surprised.
Yeah,
they've had a wet year. I thought there'd be some snow up there.
Yeah, I would assume that just the rain overall has melted a lot of the snow.
Yes, yeah.
But it was. We just struggled to find water, and so we ended up literally making a decision that next day. That afternoon, I was like, okay, let's just go back to camp. This was, and I do this stuff, and I think it's good. I know it's not for everybody. It's probably not for you that much, but like I decided, let's leave, and we're gonna go down the mountain. We're gonna go back to the base camp with these big packs, and our butts were kicked at this point, dude, and. I was like, I got some Coke Zeros. We're going to drink Coke Zeros. We're going to eat really good, lots of food. We're going to sleep. We slept good that night, dude. I'm talking, we went to sleep like before it was even completely dark and slept like, probably like 9 hours total. We kind of woke up here and there throughout the night. But that was like a rest afternoon after we, kicked our butts from trying to spike out. And so it was also a mental defeat, I think, like to have that happen where it was like, crap, we're losing time. We only got so many days. That's the thing about a drop camp is you typically only have so many days. You can buy extra days if you got to in reach and stuff, So we could have done that, but I didn't want to because by the time we buy extra days, we're talking about a 10-day plus hunt, And in this world, 10-day hunts don't happen very often. So anyway, yeah, that was a tough day for sure. And we had done some scouting. The day before the season, we were on a buck that I didn't really want to shoot open today. Probably looking back, he's probably like close to a 160. Kind of had a shallow fork on one side, good fronts, good beams, not super wide, pretty heavy. And I didn't really want to shoot him on the first day, which sounds ridiculous, but this unit has like giants in it. And this is why it's, it's a 10-point or whatever, unit to bow hunt out of in the early season. So anyway, I ended up thinking that we probably weren't going to hunt him the first day, but it would be a good buck to come back to if he would stay in that area. Pretty remote area, and a spot that didn't have any human activity near it.
So let's go through because this is new to me and probably a lot of people, and I know there's a lot of guys listening on here that are probably whitetail hunters, but it's always cool to dream about this stuff, right?
By the way, I'm still very much a whitetail hunter.
I believe you.
Even more so, maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we need to talk more then because I want to hunt a mule deer one of these days. So, in gist, what is the tactic of hunting a mule deer like this? Tell us, what does the day look like when you're doing, you have a scout day you're talking about, and what are you doing?
I hate it, dude.
Yeah.
This is the part that is one of the worst parts of it. This is different than what other mule deer hunts can look like, right? If you go watch I don't know, anybody hunting like a lower country mule deer, like a high desert mule deer or something, it's different, This is high country mule deer hunting. There's a lot of, you may see some videos or know some guys that do this, and most of them probably like to beat their chest a little bit about this because it's a very, very tough hunt. The day typically goes like this. Get up early, and we had to adjust to get up even earlier because what would end up happening is we'd get up early, and Eric was like, it's going to stink to get up early, but it's be good to take it easier on the way up there, and get breaks. And that is a good point. But then you end up still because you have more time, you take longer breaks and catch your breath longer, and then you still end up late to your scouting spot, your glassing spot or whatever. So what we'd end up doing is take our time, and then the last half mile, I would just have to burn because I I had to get up there and see before it got too light.
Y'all are
Because
covering that much country from base camp to get to where you have to glass?
2 miles easy.
Really?
Yeah. A lot of times. Yeah. So, and it doesn't look like it on the map, but by the time you like go through the bottom, get up, and finally hit a trail or something or whatever,
There's
you're
a
like,
lot of those zigzagging trails
Yeah,
going, so it's not just like a straight line.
yeah, because it's steep switchbacks, pretty much. So anyway, we would end up like the last half mile. I would just have to just pretty much leave him, and not to sound He-Man or anything, but like I'm like I said, I'm in good shape right now, and I would just have to be like, all right, dude, you just make it up here when you can. I'll see you at the top, and take off and get there. And because and also it's easier. I'll say this: it is easier to do this hunt when you have a tag in your pocket and versus when you have a camera in your hand.
I understand that.
I mean, because I did it with Nahila, and it like mentally, I was like out of that hunt by about day 5. You know what I mean?
Yeah, where I was freaking just trying to just gnaw the bone as hard as I could.
Yeah,
until
exactly.
the very last minute.
So it's a different deal, It's and you try not to be that guy, but it just is what it is. And so anyway, I would just burn up there, and so anyway, it didn't really matter. But we were getting up early, and the basic gist of how you hunt is you've got this short window from the time it gets light until a deer beds, because to find the deer for the day, pretty much. It seems like. Now, what happens is a deer beds pretty early, typically, or a deer would get in really early. They would get into willows. So if you didn't see them before they got into willows, you may not even see them for the next hour while they feed in the willows, and then finally bed. So you needed to see them before they got to the willows if you wanted the ideal situation. Then, if you did see them, you could kind of watch them in the willows potentially, but they might also disappear in there. And that was the tough thing. Because of the wet year, I guess, those willows were very tall this year. And so you see that happen. The deer typically, if you're able to see him bed in his first bed, about 9:30 to 10, they will get up and usually change beds because the sun is a little different. And it's usually not very far from where they initially bedded. They have these different spots, that they know that they can bed all day. So then they go and bed there, and then you basically can either move in and try to get this deer. He'll stand up a couple times a day to pee or eat or whatever, and then you can try to get shots, or you can sit on him and wait till the very afternoon when he actually finally maybe comes out of the willows and feeds on the edge of this stuff and makes movements towards like higher country. So basically the middle of your day looks like I'm going to sit in the sun and at 12,000 feet in 80 degrees and just be the most bored you've ever been in your life, dude. I'm telling you, it is bad. This is why I'm still very much a whitetail hunter, because
80 degrees? Is that hot up there?
I think it got 80 a couple
70,
days. It was probably
70s and 80s
mid 70s a lot.
See why there was no snow there.
Yeah, I know, dude. And so anyway, that's kind of what your day typically looks like. Well, so the first, let's see, we scouted, we found that buck that I was talking about a second ago. We had the guy that we watched camp. He went up the hill and basically blowing his wind. I didn't think he was, but he said that his wind was blowing that way when we met him. So he said he thought he might have spooked that deer. But blowing it back into all these willows where those bucks were, and they went running out of the country that day. So that kind of gave me, like, my backup plan was kind of gone, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you say those bucks, the
not opener day buck was with a bachelor group, so he had other younger, smaller deer with him.
It was the buck with big fronts and a big forky, like a 2-year-old forky, and they were, they came out and fed out of the willows, and then I guess got his wind and went flying downhill, and so. That was kind of like my backup plan going. So we moved in a different direction from this guy. And the next day, which was opening day, and we get there, we work our way up to this kind of pass, get there, and I'm like looking down, don't see anything in all these willows. And then I go around the side of this little hill, this little top that we were glassing from a lot. And I go down the side, and I look up, and there are does on these willows on the edge at like 110 yards. maybe not even. And so I'm like, does. I'm like, I don't typically think of does and bucks being together that time of year. And they weren't really when looking back on the trip. So I was like, didn't expect a buck to be with them at all. And so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to bust these does because I need to see all this country and glass it while it's, time is of the essence right now in the morning. So I like walk a couple of steps and there's just like, boom, big rack right there, like with the does. And I'm like, oh. So I try to kneel down. They take off around this side of this top. And anyway, I told Eric, Eric wasn't there yet. So I got my phone out.
Still walking.
He was still walking. I videoed myself and I was like, man, I just spooked a shooter, probably a shooter. He didn't look like he had deep forks, but like he's a big frame, And anyway, long story short, we end up kind of working around the edge of this little hill that he was on, and I kind of like tried to see if he might be on the other side of that hill, and it calmed down, and he sure enough was. He was bedded like on the edge of the timber at probably like 11.8 and down below us. And Eric carried this big old giant 600 millimeter lens we have around like the whole trip. The only pictures we used it for were that day of that buck, and they're pretty cool because he was not very far. He was like straight down, and so I end up. That buck ends up getting up, shifting his bed into these willows like 40 yards. Takes forever. I have to watch him in the binos for like 45 minutes straight just to keep an eye on him until he finally comes back into the willows, feeds around a little bit, and drops down right there. We end up, this is opening day, so we made a play on him, and he bedded it. This place is a hole, dude, like hard place to kill a deer out of. And I end up, long story short, Eric was probably 90 or 100 yards from him.
Yeah, probably something like that, yeah.
I ended up 45 from him for 3 hours maybe, waiting on him. And every time he'd get up, I couldn't get a shot. The willows are too tall. I could just see like this giant, like big frame rack, not a high scorer, but like just moving around in there. And I'd see his head, but I could never see his, like any of his body to get a shot. It was so frustrating. And I run into this thing up there that I'm looking back on now where like, I feel like it's a weird thing because if you get close enough to make yourself feel comfortable about the shot, you are more on their plane, on their level, and you don't have shots down into the willows. And it's almost like if you can shoot 70 really well, you have the advantage because you then can see into the willows. You can be up high enough with the thermal in the middle of the day to shoot down into the willows once they stand up. But I mean, it's tall stuff. So like, at 70, I almost shot him working into him. He stood up when I was at like 72, and I may have come to full draw at that point. And then he kind of worked where I couldn't get a shot. And long story short, working like 45 yards from him, sit there for 3 hours, couldn't get shots multiple times. And finally, he starts to work out of the willows at like 2, 3 p.m. And I'm like thinking, he's going to move down into some deep stuff. And I'm like, this is my chance. And so I couldn't get a shot. He got on the edge of the willows. I bust through some of the willows real quietly but fast. I see a window, like a couple of feet window, and he comes in broadside, and I don't know the distance. And I'm like, I guessed him at 60-ish. And I start to draw, and I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to shoot this deer on the first day guessing him at 60. Put my rangefinder up. He stopped in the window. I put my rangefinder up and I hit him. It's 59, and he moves out of the window. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, dude!" I was so mad. And then I go out I get towards the edge of the willows, and I look up at Eric. I'm like, give him the hey, where's he at? And he gives me this kind of like he went back in. I think he had seen a smaller buck go back in. I don't know how well he could see the buck. I know
how well Eric can see.
I spotted a lot this trip.
He did a good job, man.
What I was trying to tell you was, it's just hard to tell you this, but like where you were going, the smaller buck was coming back up at you. And so I was trying to let you know that because like he was going to spook off and then spook the other one off.
Well, the other buck went down, and I didn't know. So I come out the willows, I turn to the right, and I'm looking, not seeing nothing. And all of a sudden, at like 45 yards, they'd been standing there watching me and like take off bounding down the hill. I tear off after them. They were gone. And I was so beat because I sat there with a jacket on in like 78 degrees for 3 hours in the sun because I was getting burnt, and I'm like just sitting there in a jacket waiting. Also, couldn't sit on my butt to watch him because I couldn't see into the hole he had bedded in. So I had to stand. Y'all can't see this, but I was standing like facing sideways uphill with this foot downhill holding me the whole time and like looking over the willows trying to see him.
I've done that in the mountains a few times. In the Gila, like day 8, I had a day just like that. You remember we were stalking elk that were bedded in the bottom of those ravines? And
Yes, I do.
Yes.
I was stuck in a weird position too. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's the worst, dude. And I did that for
you're doing a ninja kick, but you're like on the ground.
Yeah. And your bottom foot's kind of holding you up. I did that for 3 hours, and like I probably sat down for a total of about 3 minutes the whole time. I finally just like stood up, walked back uphill. I'm like, I'm going to shoot him at 50 instead of 45.
Yeah, for sure.
And, even though, and I don't know, but the 45 and the angles I had just seemed better. Mm-hmm. So anyway, it wasn't, because when he stood up and finally walked around that hole, like all up in it, there was actually never a single shot in there. And that was my opening day. This was a good buck. He had kind of short fronts, kind of shallow forks, but the overall frame, he was pretty big. And so anyway, like next few days, the next day, I think, we bedded a buck in that same kind of area that was like a high scorer for what he was, but he's definitely like a year, at least a class year under that buck that I'd stalked the day before, like kind of a younger deer with good genetics. I can guess a whitetail within 5 inches a lot of times, but like, I don't know about mule deer, but I would assume like in the 140 to top end 160 range, probably not 160 at all, but like 140s probably. Just because he has deep forks and decent fronts, but he's pretty narrow. We see him in the morning, same thing, bed him, move into like 120 and from like a half mile away. And I burned a hole with my vision in this like hole in the willows for, I kid you not, over 6 hours. Just sitting there and just waiting on him to get up. And I'm hardly taking my eyes off this thing for hours and hours at a time. And we get to the end of daylight pretty much, and he hasn't come out. I've seen him like one time during that whole session, and he doesn't come out. And so we head back up the hill at the end of the day to go back to camp. We walk like 80 yards, and we're taking a break. Eric looks downhill and goes, "Hey, there's deer out there." I glass them. It's the 2 bucks. They had like kind of gone out the back through the willows instead of come up to where they had the one time we saw them feed before we moved in on them. They came out of the willows up to this little meadow, fed around, and then went back in. And I thought, that's what they'll do at the end of the night. And they didn't. And that's what's frustrating too, is like, you can't really predict movement up there. There's no fence lines. There's no creek bottoms too much. Like, and so everything is like, it's, the world is your palate, as they would say. Like this deer can go do anything he wants. There's a meadow over here. There's a meadow over here. There's willows everywhere, and you don't know where he's going to end up at. So, we end up feeling real beat at this point. Was that the same day we tried to spike?
I believe no, I don't think it was.
Next day?
But thinking back, I wonder if they got up when that rain started coming in and we were putting on the omen stuff.
Maybe.
And we just didn't see him because we were doing that.
I mean, I was watching.
While you're putting on the jacket and everything?
I mean, dude, it took me 30 seconds. I didn't even Velcro the pants I had on.
Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, it didn't take me any time at all. They could have, for sure, but I mean...
Because it wasn't long after that. Probably about an hour after that, we got up, I feel
I just don't think there's a way that he walked where I could see him.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think that they walked out the back of that stuff. Because it was, I could barely see his rack in that stuff from up high. So anyway, that happened, and...
I want to say the next day was the day we spiked out. Or
maybe.
Tried to.
We killed him on day 4, right? So there was a day between our spike out and the day that we killed, I think. But anyway, we tried to spike out, and we're just like mentally and physically beat. Not to mention, like I said in the beginning of this podcast, I've been camping so much. I've been gone a lot, and I got some young kids that like I just really miss, and my wife and like just the home and like I said earlier, the creature comforts. Like I've been sitting on rocks. We didn't have seat pads or nothing, which I usually carry, but my inflatable seat pad, I don't know where it is right now. And so it's just like the whole experience. And we weren't eating very much either, except for at night. Like I didn't pack a whole lot of good lunches or anything. Like my lunches were pretty much meat sticks, and for the first couple of days, I had some slices of cheese and like apple slices. I mean, that were dried. Like that's it, man. And so, I mean, we're like calorie deficit, like major time up there, and we're beat. I'm like thinking, man, we've been in 3 drainages that are like 5 miles apart at this point, and seen all this country and glassed it several times at different times of day, and have not seen a single buck that would push over 160 probably. And it's like, this is not, it sounds bad because like everybody wants to shoot a 160-inch mule deer that's listening probably right now. But this is like one of the top units in Colorado, if not the top unit in Colorado, when you look at like what it takes to draw this unit, because there are big deer there, and there are big deer killed every year there, dude.
The idea is, this is one of the places you've put the most eggs in your basket possible to kill a booner. Not your only chance at killing a booner, but like, this is what you go there to do.
Yeah, that's why you go there to try to kill a booner, and then you end up like settling for like a deer that's 20 inches under and it's still 170, you know, or whatever. It's like
some states I will shoot a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Whitetail. But some states I'm waiting.
That's right.
Them 2-year-olds are like deer you just film.
Yeah,
you know, that's just
right.
the way it goes sometimes.
That's right, man. You spent a decade of your life trying to draw this tag or whatever. And so I'm sad. Like, I'm like, man, this is a nightmare that people in the Western world talk about, where you put in for a long time, you draw a year. Like Jay Scott talks about this a lot, right? You put in for a long time, you go, this is the year, you got to draw early in February or something, and they don't get any rain all summer. And now you've been, you know, for the Jay Scott types out there, like you're wanting to shoot a 400 on this 27-year tag, and you didn't get rain, and there's no bulls that exist in there.
It's just
that
a 360.
That's right. They're 360s that year. And it's like, that's cool for most people.
But whenever his fifths are 1 inch and his whales are 10 inches and his fronts are 18, you're like, whoa, what could this thing have been?
Yeah, it's exactly right. And you put in for like 30 years for this thing, you know, or whatever. So, I mean, you have to put this all into perspective when I say this. So that's my disclaimer. So from now on, when I talk about things, that's what you know. But yeah, I'm like burnt out. I'm like, this is not good. This is not the way this unit should be. Maybe it's been having some pressure the last few years or something like that since, you know, whatever. But anyway, I'm thinking about leaving a day early almost. I mean, like even a half day, like hunt the morning, let the guy know, the outfitter know if he needs to pick me up that morning and I don't see anything, or if I'm stalking something, and that would be the last day. Well, I think the day before, I can't remember. For some reason, we had kind of a pick me up the afternoon before the day that I was going to make that decision and tell the outfitter. So like day 3, and I don't remember why it was, but we had a little pick me up. We also did finally spike out, and so we slept that night at 12:02.
That's high.
No wind. The quietest you could ever imagine sleeping in your life.
That's weird.
You know how I am, right? Like, we'll lay down and you'll say something to me, I'll be asleep. Like my head hit the pillow, I'm out. It took me 45 minutes to go to sleep. Easy. Like, it was the quietest I've just about ever been.
Were you on top?
Yeah, we were on the top of a saddle.
So you could look down each direction, and there's still
we
no
were
wind.
Actually in timber at 12:02.
Oh, like a little pocket.
Yep.
Those things are weird.
Yeah.
I have yet to have somebody explain to me why that can happen.
I know. It's something, I guarantee it's something about shielding from snow or something like that. Like the snow drifts, it doesn't get as much snow for some reason.
Man, I think that tree line has a lot more to do with oxygen. So,
maybe.
like, is there some weird...
I thought because tree line in Idaho and Montana is lower. I thought it was because of temperature.
I think it's because you're closer to the poles. So atmosphere is different. But I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I think it's a gradual gradient as you head towards the tundra, and once you get to true tundra, there's no more trees. I think that's why, but I don't know. I'm not a astronomer. What is it called? What's it called?
Barometer.
Meteorologist. That gummit. Dumb.
Yeah.
Dad brain for sure. But anyways, it's weird to me either way.
Astronomer.
Astronomer.
Old Scorpio over here.
Yeah. No, that's astrology, bro.
Yeah. Same thing.
So that'd be an astrologist, which is way more of a loser.
Somebody out there's really offended.
I don't care.
Oh gosh.
So y'all spiked out in a little timber pocket.
Yeah, on a saddle like 12-2 that night.
Why did you decide to save the walk for the next morning? Pretty much what you're trying to do.
We weren't if you drew straight line distance, we weren't super far, but the actual like walk was straight out of a hole every day from our base camp.
So would you have been better off like being in that spiked camp every night?
Yes,
Probably, yeah.
Or spiking a different direction from there too, towards different drainages.
Once you got there, you could ridge hop, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, so we ended up. I carried extra water. I probably carried an extra half gallon, which is 4 pounds of water, so that we could get through 2 days, basically, and then at the end of that day, go back to base camp was the plan or whatever. So. I carried extra water because we couldn't. That was the whole issue with the spiking is that like we could have spiked and we could have worked down and found water, but dude, it is so mentally and physically beating to like work all the way up to a area to scout and then have to work 600 foot down to get water and back up just to go back down to camp that night or whatever, you know. So anyway, just the way it laid out, like we could not get water very effectively, and we end up spiking out. Felt pretty good about it. The next morning we were able to get up early, and so we did, or get out early and get to where we needed to go early because it's the same thing with like deer hunting. The further you have to walk, and the more things you got to do between the time you wake up to the time that you're set up, the more of those things that there are, the more margin for error there is. So, like, if I had to walk 60 seconds in the morning, I can nail that pretty close, right? But if I have to walk 60 minutes in the morning, there may be something in there in the variables that I'm 5 minutes off.
That's why when we go out of state hunting, I hate doing morning hunts that are like far away because that drive, like, you never know, man.
Yeah, I know.
You know.
Bridge is out.
Yeah,
or
whatever it is, or you got to use the bathroom, or I needed gas, or it's even things that you mess up on. It's like, we got time to stop here and get a biscuit. And no, you don't.
Yeah, yeah, you thought you did.
Yeah,
and that's basically that next morning we had less margin for error, so we were able to get up earlier, or actually later than we were, and still get there as early as we've been. And we get there right when light starts happening, you can see, and I get to the pass, and this is where I encountered that good buck the first day, and I'm like, we're going to look down in there. At this point, like, I would definitely shoot that deer or even something smaller. I think I said, let's go kill a forky or something on video.
Well, it was, after you spotted the groove, you said that.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, we get to that pass right at daylight, and I breathing hard, and I taking a break before I glass down and everything. I look up the hill, and there are like 10 to 12 deer. And I'm like, golly, dude. And I can tell right off the bat one of them was a buck, pretty much, even 500 foot above us. They were at like 12.7, and I glass, and I'm like, dude, video these suckers. There's giants in here.
You mean you didn't tell Eric to keep the light off of the video?
No, I didn't, because, this is what we do, even though we're spending a lot of money and time on this thing. I told him to. He starts videoing them. Dude, there are like for sure 3 bucks that are like over 170 in this group. And 1 or 2, I would imagine, are probably like 180 to 190s. People will call me out on that maybe. I don't know, but I'm not like an expert, like I said.
Well, they didn't get to see them, so you can tell them.
Well, they'll get to in the video.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're on there. There's some toads, dude. And they're all staring at us. And we're like, we're above tree line. They're above us. There is nowhere. It feels like you literally would have to walk to the North Pole to get out of their vision. You know what I mean? Like they can see you for so far. And I'm just like, crap. So I was like, let's just act like we're hikers in the area or something. And we'll walk.
The old farmer thing. Yeah. Just whistle, right?
Yeah. And so we just walk and they freak out, you know? And so we walk back over to where we were and we just sit and they calm down and they just literally walk over the pass, over like into the next unit at like 12-8, 12-9, something like that. I mean, they are like for sure, gone out of our lives. So I'm like, man, this is not good. There was 3 bucks that were considerably bigger than any buck that we've seen. Not to mention, like out of maybe 12 deer, they were like all bucks. Mm-hmm. And it was just, I knew there was nothing that I could do really any better or different. But I knew that I also had pretty much cut them off because we got there early and we're doing hunting like you're supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I think they were coming down into the drainage that we were about to be glassing.
Ooh,
yeah.
Hurt.
Yeah, hurt. So, anyway, we're sitting there, we're glassing, it's getting lighter. And I tell Eric, I'm just sitting there thinking about it. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to see where these deer went. Mm-hmm. They're even if they're in that other unit, I might can hunt that unit on less points. Who knows? Mm-hmm. Or they might slip around the backside of that big hill, that big mountain that's 13,000 feet or whatever, and drop back into our unit. So I was like, I need to see this. And you know what? I'm here, and I'm capable, and it's going to suck, but I'm going to give it everything I have. And I was like, all right. I told Eric, stay here. He's tired. You know, we're both tired. Uh-huh. I'm like, there's no reason for both of us to go up there, really. You stay here. You can look around, and I'm going to go up there. And I start going straight up this hill. And dude, I kid you not, a ewe sheep walks over and just stares at me like, what in the heck are you doing up here, dude? She's like 150 yards from me, just like staring. I walk for 2 minutes while she just stares at me, doesn't freak out or nothing. Yeah. I'm just going uphill. I get to about 12.7 probably. And I'm just on the tundra walking straight up, dude. And I, of course, get tired. I take a break, turn around, kind of face downhill, and I see a bird. It's a red-tailed hawk, also known as Eric Gentry, flapping his wings like, holy, like there's something out there, and I know what this means. And I put my binos up, and he's like, gives me this like buck sign, with his hands and his arms, and then he points over this little knob that he was on or whatever, and I look down the other side and I can see it clear as day. There's a buck down there, so I put my binos on it, and it's a big frame buck down there eating willows, facing away from me, right where we came up on the pass, probably 100 yards from the pass. I could literally, if I was at the pass, I could walk straight to this deer 40 yards and shoot him at 60. He would never have a clue that I was there until maybe he turned around broadside and looked at me while I was at full draw, and it'd be too late at that point. Like, it's money, right? So old broke knee Gila Jones takes off down the hill with the left knee hurting pretty bad, basically running. Like, I'm like, as fast as I can. I got these trekking poles out in front of me, like being my brakes a little bit, and I just going, man. And I take off down there, and long story short, I started on the left side of this hill thinking I could get to this buck, and he basically is feeding in the willows, and I'm trying to stay hidden because we're out above tree line, and I lose him. And like, I sit there for like 15 minutes I'm just like, at this point, I'm like, be patient. Don't be the guy who peeks your head up and all of a sudden he was 40 yards left of where you thought he was going to be or whatever, and he's staring right at you and you got the sinking feeling. So I'm just, be patient. He'll show back up if he is. Didn't. 15 minutes later, I kind of stand up a little bit more and I'm glassing down in the willows. Eric's like, give me the, like, where's he at, or whatever. And I'm glassing. All of a sudden, I see him. He's bedded. I'm pretty sure. He's not moving, and his antlers are facing downwind. So I'm like, pretty sure he's bedded. Mm-hmm. And I got to make a play pretty quick. Sun's starting to come up. I don't want to be like spotlighted. Make a run around the hill. So I lose him for 10 minutes or whatever, maybe less than that, 5-10 minutes. And I get up on the other side of the hill above him, and the thermals are trying to stabilize, but they're doing weird things. And so I glass all down in there for like 15 minutes, and I'm trying to let the thermals stabilize. I'm throwing milkweed to try to see what it's doing, and I can't find him. And so I'm like, okay, well, if I just go, I know where he was. There was 2 spruce trees he was beside. I was like, if I just go straight down to him, then I don't think he can see me because I can't see him right now, and all I am is getting lower as I go down to him straight. As long as I stay straight, then he doesn't have a lane to see me, right? So I start working down this hill, steep hill, towards him. I'm crab walking, basically. I'm walking like with my feet forward downhill like this, and I'm just holding myself up as I'm walking, and the whole time it's like rocky. So I'll like, it's almost cartoon like I would like kick a rock with my foot and I'd be like, and I'd catch it with my left foot or whatever, stab it. And I'd be like, I'd reach down there and I'd grab it and I'd put it on a flat spot. And then I'd move my bow over and it would like want to go sliding downhill and I'd find a spot and I'd like lock it in there. Then I'd move my binos. Then I would take myself and I'd move my whole body down. And when I pick my hands up, rocks would stick to them. And I'm going straight downhill at him, so I can't let a rock go, right? And I'm like, they're sticking to my hands, so I'm having to like be super careful with every move. I'd hit one with my butt, and it would try to roll. I'd catch it down here, and just do that like 80 yards down the hill. I get like 30 yards from the edge of the willows, which is about 45 from where I think he's bedded. And I'm like, I'm almost there. The sun's starting to come up. My head's barely getting in the sun, behind me. And I think, I got to get down there pretty fast. And I hear this sound that is like, it sounds just like a deer running off. It's like, boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, dang, did my scent swirl? Did I spook him? What is going on? I have no clue what it is exactly. I was like, man, I wonder if Eric kicked a rock, but it sounded just like a deer running off. And maybe he just got out of the willows and I never saw him. You know what I mean? And so anyway, to go ahead and spoil this, Eric did kick a rock down the hill, and it luckily went left instead of down towards the willows.
Golly.
And yeah.
Well, I thought you wanted me to wake him up or something.
Yeah. I needed to make an 84-yard shot. So that happened. But anyway, I make my way down. I get to the willows. And I still don't know that Eric kicked a rock, So I'm like thinking this deer's gone. Well, I'm sitting at the edge of the willows, like 45 yards from where I think he is, but also like ranging these other spots. I've got spots from like 25 to 65 or about 75, actually. I shot a 70-yard group before I left that was like 4 inches. I was feeling good, dude. I've been shooting, if you follow on Instagram, I've been shooting the Cold Bore 94 every morning. I've been shooting it really well. It's 94 yards. So I feel good about a 70-yard shot, to be honest. This is me being transparent with you guys. I do feel very good about that at this point. And so I range all these spots. I'm sitting there. I sit there for like maybe an hour, and I'm like, this deer's not even here. I'm an idiot. I'm just sitting here looking, and Eric might have been messing with the camera or whatever, didn't see him go either, so he's not coming down here to get me, and we're going to sit here all day on this deer again, and he ain't going to move. And so, like I said, I'm going to wait, till like 9:45, and then, or I was actually going to wait till like 10, and then I was going to move over like 10 yards to get a different perspective, and then at 11, I was going to stand up and glass. And so at 9:45, I kind of got antsy. I was like, man, there's a couple little spots I can't see. So I moved over like 2 yards just to get a little different perspective around some of the brush in front of me. Didn't see him. Like 3 minutes later, I'm sitting there and there's scanning around, and I just come across this giant rack just standing there like 45 yards, and he's there. And I'm like, my heart starts beating so bad.
So he stood up?
He stood up.
Bed readjust?
Yeah. And feed. And so he's there, and I'm trying to glass, but I can barely see him through a couple of these spruce and willows and stuff, or not glass, but range. And he kind of works away from me, and I'm like, don't do this. And he gets out there a little ways, and I'm struggling to get him range. So like I stood up at some point. I stood up and draw. I drew once and couldn't get a shot. I sit back down and I readjust back kind of where I was, and the buck gets out. He's out at like 65 probably. Well, he starts coming back down the same lane he was in. I saw where he went through a place that I thought I could get a shot. So I move over another yard or so. I stand up. He's about to come through there. I ranged the willows where I thought he was going to come through at like 59. And so he comes through, gives me a shot. I had my pin at 60, and I pull back. He comes through, and I'm like, there's enough there. And I basically can only see like maybe 8 inches of his back, but I know that the willows in front of him have a few yards separation, and I think I can lob it kind of over that, you know. I draw back, and I shoot, and it seems like the arrow is just going like down the hill forever, dude. But like it's a pretty steep downhill shot, and so like to be honest, my tee is probably not, all my knocking points are off a little bit because I probably didn't draw, even though I told myself a bunch of times to do it. I probably didn't draw straight out and then bend at the waist down to him, you know? And it's just, the arrow seems like it's going and going and going. And finally, all of a sudden, like it seems like it's above him forever. You know what I mean? And it's like still doing it. It's just also happening in a split second. But all of a sudden, he just drops like a sack of potatoes and makes this like sound like a black bear death moan. I mean, it is deep, and I realized very quickly I spined him. And if you know anything about the anatomy of a deer, a spine shot is not at the top of the back. Like it's still high, no doubt, but the lungs actually touch the spine.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad shot. It's just shooting downhill at 60. I hit a little high. I spine him. He goes straight down, which is honestly like best case scenario, pretty much. You don't have to go chase him downhill and try to find him in the middle of nowhere, right? And so I immediately knock another arrow. I just Robin Hooded that out of the back. And I sail one at 60 because I'm just shook up at this point, dude. And then he stops thrashing. And I look up the hill, and Eric's like, gives me this pump, you know, whatever. And then he's like, he gives me he's trying to give me a sign. I'm like, what? And he kind of gives me this whole buck, and he's like down, and he just goes, wow, like that across the neck with the swipe. And I'm like, he's dead, you know? So I'm not lying. Like I started crying, dude. It was so much. Like when you add like 11 years straight of applying, money, a lot of money spent on the outfitter compared to what I normally spend on a hunt, right? Days and days of just miles of straight uphill at above 12,000 feet and like all these different things. And then also thinking like, this is the second to last day of the hunt, and I don't know where any bucks are that are even decent at all. I know where a 2-year-old Forky has been the last couple of nights. And I'm thinking I'm not going to shoot a deer on this trip after all this, man. And so like I start tearing up with just joy and all these emotions too. Like I didn't really want to spine him because everybody thinks you're a cruddy hunter when you spine something, you know, and all these things, all these different emotions, just a big moment. Well, I'm like enjoying it. I'm trying to video myself on my phone, and the phone wasn't even recording, which is cool. But then I turn around, and Eric's like freaking out. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm thinking like the deer's like back on his feet, taking off, because they do weird things sometimes when you spine them. Well, apparently he had seen him pull his head back up. So he gets down to me. We take off into the willows. By the way, I'd already broken an arrow, so my 5-arrow quiver turned into a 4-arrow quiver at this point. I've shot 2 arrows. I got 2 more. So I go down the hill, and I get pretty close to him. Eric's filming this. This is sick. Like, y'all are, as hunters, you guys are going to really like this video, I think. It is raw, in the moment, like crazy emotions, and just it's cool footage. And he's filming kind of me, and the buck gets up and is trying to get up and go downhill about the time I come around at like 5 yards on this willow. And so I go full draw, and he's like working his way kind of downhill real slowly. And so I'm trying to shoot him before he gets into the willows, and I miss my shot, right? And so I kind of adjust, and I start to fall downhill, and at the same time I'm shooting. And so the shot, like my recovery is swinging right a little bit, and the shot's a little bit back, but I'm pretty sure it gets offside lung, and it's like 5 yards, which is, it's weird if you never like had to do this too. It's like, I mean, as a person who like loves animals too, like it's a weird feeling, right? So I shoot him, and I'm pretty sure I one lung him. He like does this weird thing with his neck stretched out, and then he just like collapses, and I'm like, oh, dead, done. So I look at Eric, he's videoing me. We're like, game over. I start smiling. I'm happy, but I'm also emotional. And like, we celebrate for about 45 seconds, and all of a sudden this thing starts moving again.
Dadgummit.
And I got 1 arrow, guys, at this point. So I put the arrow on the knock, or knock the arrow, and as fast as I can, and then I have to like move again, I think, to get another shot on him. And at 5 yards, I double lung him. I make a good shot. I'm not falling or anything on this shot, and kill him like within probably like 10 seconds after I hit him right there, and it was over finally. And it was just a crazy experience. And the deer, turns out the deer is the deer that I stalked the first day on opening day, and he is a very big frame deer for what I thought I was going to kill, especially. He's got short fronts and shallow forks. Oh, like, and when you look at this as like what this unit could be, a top trophy unit, right? But he's a, I mean, full velvet, just big frame deer, not like a young deer by any means. Big body, huge, big old dome on him, man, just big head. And I like just couldn't hardly believe that we were sitting there with that deer at that point in the hunt, with as hard as it went and as hard as it was and as difficult as finding big deer was on that hunt. And like, I couldn't be happier. I literally could have shot a 180 and been this pretty much the same amount of happy and joy, you know? So, cause at that point that deer score didn't matter much in the whole equation, you know, like there's a little bit, but I mean, a fraction or small percentage of that hunt was going to be about score at that point. Opening day, it would have been different. You know what I mean? Sure. But at that point, I like almost could not have expected a bigger deer to fall into my lap, you know? And it was just crazy, man. I was just so happy. And then I did my first, gutless method.
Oh yeah.
Taught by the man himself, KC Smith. I had never done one, but he's done several, and I got to watch him do a lot of pigs over the last few years on gutless, and it was very helpful to watch that.
I'm glad it went well, because I'm about 50-50 when I start doing one. It seems like half the time it's a rodeo, and then about half the time it works out pretty good.
It worked out really well, actually, and I got the tenderloins and everything, and yeah, it worked out really well.
How did it go doing a cape with gutless? Was it easy?
Tough.
It's tough.
Yeah, it was tough. But I did it well. I had one miss swipe where I cut into like the cowlick on the brisket, probably like right in there. But I think that taxidermists deal with way worse than that a lot of times. Yeah, so I had like probably a 2-inch hole there. And then I actually didn't, I didn't have to like necessarily cape and skull cap him there. So I was able to, just pull him up to the back of the head and cut it off. And it was hot, dude. So I was worried. We didn't take nearly as many pictures as I wanted to. I didn't even get a picture with Eric and the deer because we were we're freaking out. Like, deer's like stomach is growing while we're sitting there. You know what I mean?
Good. It looks hot in the next
pictures. Oh, it is. It was hot. I had my shirt off, like doing a bunch of stuff. I was just like He-Man up there.
We had the meat tucked under willows just to get it into shade. And
and it cooled off. It cooled off really well once we got it out of there. But like in the skin, it was hot, dude.
Yeah.
And
that's one of the big problems with the gutless method, though, is that your meat is exposed.
Yeah.
Like, you can get meat dirty because there's no side to lay it down on. That's not that way.
We had a trash bag.
Yeah.
So our friend Garrett didn't send me any meat
good
hauling bags. So
perfect.
Yeah, we had a good trash bag to lay down.
Let me add that to my running list right here then, because I thought we were going to have those.
Yeah. So we had trash bag to lay it on. We used jackets and stuff. You just kind of get resourceful when you're out there. You only got what you got, man.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that's cool about it, because it's a very simple life out there. You don't deal with all the dumb things that are on TikTok or whatever, and just like some of the things that are dramatic in your life, like you get rid of that. And that's one of those things I appreciate about that style of hunt and that thing. But I think that I don't have an ego enough to be the guy that everybody looks up to that does that hunt a bunch. I don't enjoy the loneliness of that hunt, really. I enjoy being away from people for a day or two. I don't enjoy being away from people for a week. I don't think that's how we were designed to be either. I think community is a big part of what we were designed to be a part of. And so I don't enjoy the loneliness of the mountains necessarily. I enjoy some peace and tranquility here and there through the mountains. And I don't at all enjoy sitting there for 8 hours in the middle of the day with like nothing to do when it's 80 degrees and you're just looking at the same willows you've been looking at. And I mean, when it's sunny, dude, it's hard to use a spot and scope.
Yeah,
you got to
for
close
sure.
your eye the whole time, and it's like just a headache. So
Literally.
give me for real, and so give me a convenience store pizza and a Pepsi in the middle of the day and some On X, and I'll go kill a whitetail in the afternoon. You know what I mean? That's what I really like. Have a newfound appreciation for whitetails after this. You know, like what I love about deer hunting and the camp life and everything. It's just overall, it's way better. So
cool.
I would say doing this hunt once or twice in your life is definitely probably something you should look to aspire to do.
Mm-hmm.
But for me personally, I will be okay without mule deer hunting like that for at least probably another decade. At least today.
Yeah.
In a week, you may ask me, it may be 5 years, and then in another week, it may be 3 years. But like, I do feel very satiated, and like, I don't need to do that again. I do feel also like I need to be in the whitetail woods soon, because like I'm like eat up with it now, dude. Like, I'm just like, this is why whitetail is so cool. You know?
Mentioned On X a while ago. I've been looking at the map while you're talking, just trying to, because I kind of know the area, but I don't know exactly where you're talking and doing stuff. But I'm like, just trying to figure out.
It looks way smaller on the map.
I bet it does.
Yeah.
So you're like going up one of these drainages or whatever, and getting up here on the ridge line and glassing down.
Pretty much getting on, like ridge, like little, what do they call them? At the end of a ridge or whatever, like that's really high, and glassing down. And once you know what willows look like on the map, you can tell where they're at. Yep. And you can, find big swaths of willows to glass. They're not necessarily that they're not in the timber, but if we saw deer in the timber, it was almost, I think it may have been 100% does.
Well, they're also hard to hunt in the timber, right? So that's kind of part of the reason why you go
do that.
there up high.
Yeah.
So, looking at a map, maybe to kind of help people navigate like the thought of what is passable and what is like you can't go there. When the lines start to get close on this map, it sounds like you can't go there.
If you're like, those lines are kind of closer together, might as well not even think about it at all. Yeah. I mean, not that like there's not some that are close together that you can't go mess with, but like overall, like
feasible huntability.
If it looks average, if it looks tighter than average, then you probably should not think about it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So... But it's cool. We saw all kinds of things. We saw a bunch of elk, not a bunch. We saw one big group and then a few others. We saw a bunch of sheep. We saw more moose than we saw elk probably, except for the one big group of elk we saw. So it was a really wild country, dude.
So you're telling me that like if I draw a mule deer tag in the next year or two, you're going to send a camera guy with me and not go on the hunt?
I'm probably not a camera guy on that one. No. I actually might be in Nebraska whitetail hunting or something.
Man, I was missing that this year too. Y'all probably may or may not know, but my wife had a son mid-August, which is also mine. So we had a son. Well, I've been saying like,
you're having trouble with this, aren't you?
Yeah, and then people are like, "Well, she had a kid." I'm like, "Well, you're just freaking stupid. It's our kid." And believe me, after she's had the kid, we are both enduring the same amount of stuff at this point in time.
I think that people are struggling with it because they think men can have kids now, right, or something.
Maybe so.
Maybe that's why.
I think maybe, but maybe not people that listen to this too much. So I didn't have the opportunity to go with you on this hunt, and I'm fixing to leave on an elk hunt, which is pushing it really because like. Kind of feel bad about leaving my wife with the youngin right now because she's having to do quite a bit if I'm not here. But
she wanted it.
It is what it is. Yeah, she wanted it, and she said she was comfortable because she knew, right? She knows what I do.
That's right.
She knew that like September was going to be wild, and also if you are in the planning stages of life or considering that. Women are actually pregnant for 10 months, not 9. Keep that in mind. It's for real. Like. 9 months pregnant is what everybody always thinks about, right? But 40 weeks is like the time when they're like, okay, it's time to induce the baby. You do math on that, that's 10, not 9. So when you start planning things, maybe you should make June the cutoff, I'll just say, and not July. So keep that in mind, because you're going to want to go do some hunting in the future. But either way, we're fixed to go actually on a little elk hunting adventure. Go shoot a tasty critter. And you're going to do some meat cutting up, I think, right?
Yeah, I am. I'm going to cut meat and wash dishes.
The word on the street is that mule deer meat looked real good.
Yeah, it did. It's darker than what I've seen whitetails be, and they say it's real tasty.
My dad loves to just be the person that drives me crazy. All them mule deer ain't fit to eat. Why do you think that is?
I think a lot of people don't shoot deer that live a very undisturbed life eating willows at 12,000 feet. Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes they end up shooting deer that are eating dusty sage or something like that. They end up also shooting deer that are in high desert when it's 82 degrees and they don't take care of it. Mm-hmm. Kind of like antelope. Like a lot of people either hate or love antelope, and it's usually based off of the fact they didn't get taken care of in time, probably. So it's like our boy Jake last year that came running into camp and was pretty much just like going to leave this deer in the back of the truck for a little while in the sun.
Yep.
Yeah.
Man, when them eyeballs start kind of sinking in some, and then looking kind of crusty, it's like, man, you need to do something with that thing.
That's a good point, man.
Yeah, for real. So I had another question for you about that deer hunt, but I couldn't.
You should ask one to Eric. I got to pee real bad.
All right, Eric, while Tyler takes his bathroom break, what would you change about your backcountry setup? This is your first time ever, and I know you're kind of nervous about like your food and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You're a little particular on food, so
not always, but probably not as much just in case stuff. Just like little things like that. Like, I can't even think, but there's just a lot of production stuff that was just in case that I used the same camera battery the whole trip. I just kept it charged. So didn't necessarily need,
for a weight saving purpose, you're thinking for this stuff?
Yeah, just stuff like that. Maybe not as much granola stuff because I had Z bars, granola bars, and then also trail mix. So just like all that all week kind of got old. So probably more stuff like Tyler did, dehydrated fruits. And
I hear that you were able to take pets with you to the mountain.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
The mango pet?
Yeah.
I got it with us for this trip. So.
Perfect.
He's making the trip with us.
Yeah. So I know your Spanish is tough, but piedra means rock.
Yeah.
And mango means fruit. So when you don't go buy rocks, you go buy fruits whenever it's time to.
I think it's finally getting soft. So we'll
Is
see.
It?
Yeah.
You can have that one. I think I might even video you eating that one. I think might be the better call there.
Dude, last night we had to go eat at Meemaw's. And,
had to.
Yeah. And Meemaw didn't cook though. And so Christy brought these cookies. They're like the puffy ones. They got cream in the middle, and there's like a cookie on each side. What are they called?
Macaron.
No, well, I don't think they're technically macaroons, but they look like it. Yeah.
Okay.
What are they? Sorry, I can't think. Anyway, that's not important. She had red velvet, chocolate, and oatmeal, and she's like, "Oh, the red velvet and chocolate are good, but those oatmeal, I just love those. They're so good. You should definitely have one." And I'm sitting there thinking, like, I've had so many oaty things in the last few days. I do not care to have an oatmeal
that's funny, dude.
cookie right now.
Yeah, like oats aren't like a big part of most people's diet unless you eat oatmeal fairly often or granola bars. But like you go to the backcountry and all of a sudden you're an oat master.
Yeah. He was so tired of that oat mix, that granola mix or whatever, and he was trying to pawn it off of me. And I was like, glad to have it, So I eat it like the last 2 days a little bit, and then. The last day we're sitting there waiting on the outfitter, it seemed like forever to come get us or whatever on the horses. And I was finally like, okay, the only thing I'm eating now, this is chocolate. I'm just going as I was just picking through eating chocolate out of it the whole time. I was like, these oats are disgusting.
Good. I made some homemade granola bars for
Yes.
our trip. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, or whatever you want to call them. They're those peanut butter power things. But
Yeah.
I didn't make them into balls. I made it.
Okay.
Balls take too long and they make your hands messy.
Yeah.
So I was like, I can take the same stuff, flatten it out on a cookie sheet, and make it a 1/2 inch thick, and just cut them into squares, and then there's way less mess.
Yeah.
I think the balls are like cute and like a kid thing to do, or whatever, which is fine. But trying to be efficient.
Maybe though, because maybe they cook differently.
Well, they don't cook.
Oh, they don't?
No, they're no bakes.
Oh.
They just sit up in the refrigerator.
Well, maybe there is nothing different.
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I've done it.
Maybe
We've been eating them at my house in the bar style, and they're pretty good. So
Yeah. They got honey in them?
honey. So it's an easy mix, man. You just put a bunch of oats, oatmeal. I do the quick oats, kind of why they set up better, I think. What?
Quotes.
Yeah, quotes. And then like about 1/3 to 1/2 ratio on peanut butter. It depends on what peanut butter you use. And then a bunch of honey.
There's only one kind of peanut butter to use.
Nah, dude.
No.
Brookshire's Natural's the way to go.
No, dude.
It is.
It's the honey cream roast
that
is the
stuff
only
is- no.
It's the only peanut butter that
Stuff's
matters.
bad for you, bro.
It's so tasty.
And
though.
then a bunch of raisins and like an adequate amount of good vanilla. And then
I love vanilla.
it is like it's literally a PB&J, but like in a bar form. It's good.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Eric's like, I'm back on oats now.
Yeah. It's brown, right?
Eric was having sweet corn deficiency up there. That was his problem.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Man, we should have brought some of that.
Should have had just some sweet corn.
Had some SCD.
Yeah. So, what was the most important preparation that you did for this hunt?
Running 3 miles till I felt like I was going to throw up.
You think?
I mean, 100%.
Shooting.
I'm not saying Eric wasn't in good shape, but dude, I could fly.
Yeah.
Pretty good up there, like compared to what some of the other hunts I've been on. And I also don't know if the altitude affects me quite as much. Because we've talked about this before. I don't know if I don't know what it is. It may be, this is a hypothesis, but it may be an asthma thing.
Mm-hmm.
I had asthma pretty bad as a kid.
You always have altitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just I'm kind of used to living with a tight chest, you know what I mean? And like not getting full oxygen. So maybe that's part of it, or maybe it's just I prepared really well.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that was very, very important. Also, I know they may not be the best backcountry food for energy or whatever, but the dried bananas and apples are the thing for me. Like they taste so good. Mm-hmm. It's the best. And it's got to be pretty good because if you're eating Mountain House, you're eating straight MSG preservatives.
Yeah, dude. I'm trying to not do that.
Yeah. And these are literally just like cut apples that I put in a dehydrator for 10 hours and they taste amazing. They got lots of sugar, so they taste good. Mm-hmm. And they got fiber.
Vitaminas. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would take more of that stuff.
Yeah.
I took quite a bit, but I was kind of having to ration the last 3 or 4 days on some of that stuff. When I killed the deer, the first thing I did was walk up the hill to my pack and eat all the bananas that I had left.
What'd you do for caffeine?
Mio.
That did fine.
I didn't take a bunch of it. I only drank a little bit in the morning and then just left it usually. And I didn't want to take a cup with me most days either. Mm-hmm. So just drank out of Nalgene's. But that was caffeine. I mean, my eyes were burning and tired and wanting to sleep all day on those days we sat on deer. But you just got to be tough.
Yeah.
Like, it's just one of those. So for 6 to 7 days, you just got to be tough. The worst part of the trip was riding horses, no doubt. I hate horses. I'm the farthest thing from a cowboy there is, man.
Understand.
They just hurt. They do whatever they want. They make me just want to bite my lip so hard that it bleeds while I'm just raging their head up from the grass. The first thing he told me was if old Blaze eats, just whip that head up or whatever, And he was like, he's on the clock. I was like, yeah, okay. The whole time I was having to pow, pow, Don't forget, at some point today, Friday or Saturday, there will be a video reminder button on the premiere of this mule deer hunt. So you can go to YouTube and you can click get reminder, and it will remind you Sunday at the 2:00 hour or somewhere near that there's a video to watch. and we would really appreciate comments and any kind of support you can give us. This hunt, you could probably tell when you watch it, it meant a lot to me. So it means a lot to me that you guys would support us as well. And thank you for the support you've given us as well along the way. The Hunter's video has done really well. And for the first time in a long time, he feels good about himself. So,
yeah, that's hilarious. And if y'all want to help Tyler feel good about himself, what we should do is hop on the premiere when it's going on Sunday, crack a lot of jokes leading up to it, like get him, kind of down a little bit, and then lift that bro up whenever it goes down.
Y'all can crack jokes about me crying. I don't even care, man. It was awesome. But anyway, yeah, dude, it's just horses, man. They just wear at this point in the hunt too, on the way down, I have no fat reserves. So my butt is just straight bone in the saddle, dude. It is hurting, man. We got to the last 30 minutes, I was just like, this is terrible. And I have a bad back right in the middle. And so after 2 hours of that, it just doesn't matter what I do. I'm just in pain. So
yeah, sooner or later, you just have to live with pain.
Also,
stinks.
every outfitter or anybody you ever talk to that has run horses, they just talk about it like it's a funny thing, but it's not funny. But they talk about oh yeah, last year got thrown off and cracked a rib, broke my ankle, and had a concussion and had to miss 6 months or whatever. I can't miss 6 months right now. Okay, I got a family and stuff, And so anyway, I just I'm the whole time I'm thinking, I'm not really worried about it, but I'm thinking on some of the downhill stuff, I'm going to put my toes real light in these stirrups and I'm going to be ready to jump if I need to, because this horse is looking like he's trying to fall down this rocky mountain right here.
Dude, I'm feeling real confident on that kind of stuff right now. My phone has been falling a couple times, 3 times in the past 2 days, and I've caught it on the fall, which means that my reflexes are being sharp right now.
Yeah,
you know
dude.
What I'm saying? So I'm
Must
ready.
be eating keto.
I am. I'm not actually. Been slouching on my diet the last 36 hours, but that's all right. Kind of trying to get fueled up for this hunt, man. I'm fixing to get on here with some of our bros. So Eric is actually fixing to just turn around. He's going to have one night's sleep at his home and go hunting. So
let's do it.
Let's go elk hunting. That way we can get to whitetail hunting. What's that sound like?
That sounds pretty good to me.
Good. Well, guys, remember, season is close. You're about to get to enjoy one of the greatest things there is known to man, and that is a deer season. So remember to be happy about it, and remember, this is your element.
Live in it.
Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls because I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like them. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.